Human evolution has a famous food story. Meat made our brains bigger. Sharp stones cut flesh. Hunting rewarded intelligence. Calories changed everything. It is a powerful story because much of it makes sense. Animal foods brought dense energy, protein, fat and valuable micronutrients. But a growing brain had another problem that meat alone cannot explain. The human brain is extraordinarily expensive tissue to keep alive. Even while resting, it continuously demands fuel from the bloodstream. And one fuel has an especially important role in that system: glucose. Which creates a question hidden inside the story of human evolution. As our ancestors' brains expanded, where did all that glucose come from? Especially before bread, rice, farms, or anything resembling modern food. A new study argues we may have overlooked part of the answer. Not another animal. Not a new weapon. Something much sweeter. Could sugar have helped fuel the evolution of the human brain? The question begins with something every living brain must solve: energy. Neurons cannot simply stop working whenever food becomes difficult to find. They maintain membranes, transmit signals, and constantly repair cellular machinery. All of that costs energy. And over human evolution, our lineage invested more heavily in brain tissue. That created advantages, but it also created an expensive metabolic problem. More brain tissue means more energy must be found every day. Energy cannot be invented inside the body from nothing. It has to come from food, stored reserves, or molecules made internally. Humans can manufacture glucose when necessary through metabolic pathways. But making glucose inside the body also carries biological costs. Obtaining carbohydrates directly can provide a more immediate source. That matters when an organ has a large and continuous demand. But the brain was not the only tissue competing for glucose. Human evolution had to feed an entire body while enlarging one costly organ. For decades, prehistoric diet debates often focused heavily on animal foods. Bones survive. Cut marks survive. Stone tools survive remarkably well. A ripe fig eaten 2 million years ago leaves far less behind. So archaeology can sometimes make durable foods appear more important. Absence from the ground does not necessarily mean absence from dinner. Fruits can disappear completely within days, weeks, or seasons. Honey may leave no obvious archaeological signature at all. Underground plants can survive archaeologically, but often only under special conditions. That creates a preservation bias in our picture of prehistoric meals. The new research approaches the problem from the opposite direction. Instead of asking only what food survived, ask what bodies required. How much glucose did an expanding hominin brain actually need? What foods available at each period could realistically provide it? And what happens when pregnancy and childhood enter the equation? Suddenly, prehistoric diet becomes more complicated than hunters chasing meat. The researchers built a nutritional model spanning roughly 4 million years. It did not pretend to know exactly what every ancestor ate. Instead, it tested dietary possibilities against changing biological requirements. 6 broad evolutionary stages were compared across the model. Fossils helped estimate how brain and body size changed through time. Physiology helped estimate how much obligatory glucose tissues required. Teeth supplied clues about the mechanical demands of ancestral diets. Isotopes offered another imperfect window into foods eaten long ago. Archaeology added tools, residues, fire, and evidence of food processing. Modern primates offered ecological comparisons, but not perfect replicas. Genetics contributed clues about our changing capacity to digest carbohydrates. None of these clues can recreate a 4-million-year-old menu perfectly. Together, however, they can test whether certain diets were biologically plausible. And the earliest stages pointed strongly toward one familiar food category. Go back to Australopiths, long before the full emergence of Homo. Their brains were much smaller than ours, but still needed glucose. The modeling suggests carbohydrate-rich plants were already crucial energy sources. In many habitats, fruit would have offered an obvious package of sugars. Sweetness signals readily available carbohydrate to many primates, including us. But fruit is not a supermarket shelf waiting in the forest. It ripens seasonally, grows unevenly, and can disappear quickly. Finding it requires memory, movement, and knowledge of a landscape. A fruit-rich diet therefore does not mean an easy life. And early hominins probably ate far more than one food type. Evolution rarely runs on a single ingredient. What matters is whether the total diet could support biological demands. As brains increased, that energy problem became increasingly difficult to solve. Then our lineage entered a new evolutionary chapter, early Homo. Homo habilis appears alongside clearer evidence for systematic stone tool use. Cutting tools opened access to animal tissue in new ways. Meat and marrow offered dense packets of fat, protein and micronutrients. They almost certainly mattered. The new research does not erase them. The challenge is that protein is not the same thing as glucose. Fat can supply enormous energy, but brain metabolism has special constraints. The body can adapt during fasting and use ketone bodies extensively. Yet some tissues retain an obligatory requirement for glucose. And reproduction creates demands far beyond one adult brain. So meat could be important without being the entire nutritional story. Early Homo likely survived through dietary flexibility rather than ideological purity. Whatever provided safe calories in a changing landscape could matter. That includes foods rarely preserved beside dramatic stone tools. The archaeological spotlight may simply shine more brightly on bones. But the body's energy budget remembers foods archaeology may have forgotten. With Homo erectus, bodies and brains moved toward a new scale. Longer legs supported efficient movement across increasingly large territories. Larger ranging territories could provide more opportunities and more risk. A bigger brain was useful only if enough energy supported it. According to the model, carbohydrates remained important during this transition. Fruit could deliver glucose without requiring fire or complex processing. Honey offered something even more concentrated, naturally occurring simple sugars. But acquiring honey from wild bees could be painful and dangerous. High-value foods often reward knowledge as much as physical strength. Knowing when trees fruit could save hours of wasted searching. Knowing where bees nest could reveal a dense seasonal reward. Food ecology may therefore connect nutrition with memory and cooperation. But again, we cannot watch Homo erectus make these decisions. The model estimates possibilities, it does not recover individual meals. That limitation matters, because the next part changed carbohydrate access dramatically. Before cooked starch became reliable, naturally sweet foods had one clear advantage. Their carbohydrates were already accessible without transforming them over fire. To an animal searching for calories, sweetness is useful information. Humans did not invent a preference for sweet food in supermarkets. Sweet detection is evolutionarily far older than modern processed sugar. In nature, sugar usually arrived packaged with water and plant structure. Honey was different, concentrated, portable and extraordinarily attractive. But wild honey was never guaranteed, safe or available every day. So neither fruit nor honey can be treated as permanent evolutionary fuel. Their importance would vary with habitat, season, and hominin behavior. Tropical environments could offer resources unavailable in colder or drier regions. Evolution never happened inside one permanent African fruit garden. As environments changed, flexible feeders had an obvious survival advantage. Then fire opened another vast carbohydrate reserve beneath the ground. Many plants store energy underground as starch inside roots and tubers. Raw starch can be mechanically and chemically difficult to access efficiently. Heat changes starch structure and can make digestion substantially easier. Cooking therefore altered the energetic value of many plant foods. A difficult underground resource could become a reliable glucose source. That does not require farming, bread, or domesticated grains. Wild yams and other underground storage organs existed long before agriculture. Once cooking became dependable, hominins gained another carbohydrate strategy. Fruit was no longer the only plausible route to dietary glucose. This may have mattered as humans expanded into more seasonal environments. Underground foods can persist when ripe fruit is temporarily scarce. Fire also made some foods softer, safer, and easier to chew. Cooking was not one invention with one evolutionary consequence. It transformed many parts of the human energy economy at once. And one of the biggest energy demands was not hunting or walking. Pregnancy changes the energy equation long before a baby is born. A developing fetus requires glucose supplied through the mother. The placenta itself is metabolically active tissue with its own demands. After birth, lactation creates another major energetic challenge. Human reproduction therefore makes ancestral nutrition a family-level problem. The 2026 model explicitly includes these reproductive glucose demands. That changes how we think about foods important to human evolution. Evolution is not only about keeping adult hunters alive. It is about producing children who survive long enough to reproduce. A diet that supports reproduction can reshape a population across generations. Carbohydrate-rich foods may therefore matter beyond the adult brain itself. They could help support the entire biological system producing large-brained offspring. This is an evolutionary story easily missed when attention stays on weapons. The most important meal may sometimes have fed someone who never hunted. And human childhood makes that problem even larger. Human children invest an extraordinary share of energy in their brains. Childhood is therefore one of the most metabolically demanding human life stages. A child cannot simply become a successful hunter when calories disappear. For years, human offspring depend heavily on other people for food. That dependency may make reliable energy resources socially important too. Fruit could be eaten immediately by children capable of chewing it. Cooked underground foods could provide another soft, energy-rich option. Honey, when available, could deliver concentrated energy in very small amounts. But we cannot reconstruct ancient childcare menus from modeling alone. What we can say is that large brains increased energetic pressure. Pregnancy increased it. Lactation increased it. Childhood increased it again. Human evolution therefore required more than simply acquiring protein. It required solving a complicated problem of energy, nutrients, and timing. Different foods may have solved different pieces of that problem. Which means the meat versus sugar fight may be the wrong question. The study does not show that meat was unimportant to human evolution. It does not show that sugar alone caused our brains to expand. And it does not identify one perfect ancestral human diet. Different hominin populations lived in different environments across enormous timescales. Their food opportunities could change dramatically from season to season. Some groups probably consumed more animal food than others. Some environments would make fruit and plant foods more available. Human dietary flexibility itself may have been one of our greatest strengths. Meat can provide nutrients that fruit cannot provide in meaningful amounts. Plant foods can provide carbohydrates and compounds animal tissue does not. Evolution did not force our ancestors to choose a nutritional ideology. They had a simpler problem: find enough food and stay alive. Then keep children alive long enough to continue the lineage. From that perspective, every reliable calorie source deserves investigation. Including the sweet foods that rarely survive in archaeological sites. This is where a viral story can easily outrun the evidence. The paper is a model built from multiple scientific evidence streams. It is not a fossil containing a label saying, brain fuel. It cannot tell us what Lucy ate on one particular morning. It cannot measure the honey intake of a Homo erectus family. It cannot prove carbohydrates triggered a specific jump in brain size. Brain evolution involves genetics, development, ecology, behavior, and social life. Food supplies the energy, but energy alone does not design anatomy. A car needs fuel, but gasoline does not invent the engine. Likewise, glucose could support brain growth without causing it by itself. That distinction is central to understanding what this research actually proposes. The question is not, did sugar create human intelligence? The better question is, what foods made larger brains energetically possible? And the answer increasingly appears to include carbohydrates alongside animal foods. That is less dramatic than a food war, but scientifically more interesting. There is another misunderstanding we should remove before going further. Prehistoric sugar does not mean soda, candy, or refined table sugar. For most ancestral environments, sweetness arrived inside whole natural foods. Fruit contains water, fiber, and many compounds beyond simple sugars. Honey is concentrated sugar, but finding it required wild ecological opportunity. Cooked starches later provided glucose through another completely different route. So this evolutionary research is not nutritional permission for modern excess. Ancient scarcity and modern abundance are completely different environments. A craving useful in scarcity can become complicated when sweetness is everywhere. Evolution preserves motivations that worked in worlds very unlike ours. That may help explain why sweetness still commands our attention so easily. But today's health questions cannot be answered by prehistoric evolution alone. For Glacial, the question is older and stranger than nutrition advice. What energy sources helped make an enormous human brain evolutionarily sustainable? 4 million years ago, no ancestor was searching for brain food. They were searching for the next meal. Sometimes that meal may have been meat taken with stone tools. Sometimes roots pulled from soil and later transformed by fire. Sometimes fruit found at exactly the right moment of ripeness. And sometimes perhaps honey worth enduring hundreds of angry bees. None of these foods alone made a human brain. But together, they may have solved different parts of its energy problem. Meat brought nutrients and dense calories. Plants brought carbohydrate and diversity. Fire expanded what our ancestors could extract from the landscape. Cooperation helped move those calories toward children and dependent group members. Evolution may not have chosen between meat and sugar at all. It may have rewarded humans capable of using whatever the landscape offered. Our brains were not built by one miracle food, but an evolving energy system. What else made us human? Subscribe to Glacial Stories from Before Civilization.